We need to stop waiting as a generation for our life to happen, right? Houses are not going to get any cheaper. Like healthcare is not going to get any cheaper. Like, sorry, but we do need to start to take agency over our own healing because it's actually accessible to us. The world is imperfect and no one's going to act the way that you want them to act. The only person that you have control over is you. We're getting to age, like we're almost exiting childbearing age, where there's a lot of stuff that I think we're waiting on to stop waiting.
The Well Pro Show. Brought to you by futurist thought leader Kate Stillman and the team at Wellness Pro Academy.
Hello, everyone. It's Kate Stillman with the Wellness Pro podcast, and I'm here with Valerie Hwang Beck, who her website is intrepidwellness.life. And Valerie came into Wellness Pro Academy. She started it's been so fun to watch her grow, and she started a great podcast on rising from the ashes. Her podcast is called From the Ashes, and it's got dynamic conversations on personal growth and discovery and human resilience. And in Wellness Pro Academy, Valerie's been growing Club Phoenix, where she specializes in guiding people through life challenges to emerge healthier and more resilient and purpose-driven, which is so important right now. Her background is an Ayurvedic medicine practitioner. She's also just a really great hip hop dancer and loves to shoot these great movement videos. So it's been fun to work with you and to see this conundrum. What I wanted to talk about on today's episode of millennials who are maybe suffering more than other generations due to self-isolating behaviors. And so I was looking at the idea of like a social wellness club, because what I noticed from having worked with so many wellness pros over time and having social wellness clubs myself, really, where it's like Body Thrive wasn't just a wellness club, it was very social. Like people find their best friends. There's accountability partnerships. People take it offline. People meet up at the live events. It becomes very much a huge part of their social life. So I just wanted to really explore with you on this podcast today the idea of social wellness clubs with millennials or with even with Gen Z, people that are finding just more digital nativism and more disconnect due to that. So yeah, I'd love to know just right off the top some of how you've thought about this.
Okay, excellent. Actually have a lot of thoughts, but first of all, thank you for having me on the show. I'm really happy to be here today and to be talking about this issue, because it's something that I've observed happening so much. And actually, as we go through generations, as the generations get younger, they do get more anxious. It has a lot to do with social media and peer pressure and all the stuff we see because we see other people living the so-called perfect lives on camera, and then just people compare themselves. And because of there's so much sensory input all of the time, people are getting more overwhelmed with things. And we look at millennials and we look at the younger generations, it's like, why are you so fragile? Why is it that you can't come to work? All of these things. And they don't understand, like, it's the more that we have all of this media distraction, the more our nervous systems get bent out of shape.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it seems like unless you're drawn into conversations with intimacy and depth, that like they really just might not happen. Like people just might not have enough of those conversations to feel calm in those situations or feel like they can like enter challenging territory. So to me, it's like actually a skill that needs to be cultivated and practiced.
Absolutely. And I think a social wellness club is a really good idea because a lot of people that I work with, they're coming from a place of burnout, which means that there has to be a level of healing that has to happen from within to get even stability to do anything else. Whereas I think for maybe older generations, this is not as much of a problem. But what I find is, like, even in my club, people come in and they really want to heal, but sometimes, it does get overwhelming. And so providing a safe space where people don't have to always be like on it. right? Always be like, yeah, I'm like going to do this. I'm going to be enthusiastic. I'm going to push through, which is like the mentality I think that we're burning out of. And I'm just going to allow myself to be and be a little bit more introspective. And then we'll be introspective together.
Hmm.
And we're allowed to look in and see our feelings together and process those. So showing up becomes less of pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and then it sounds like you're experiencing this, like then people actually crave the depth and connection that comes from that more introspective state.
Yeah, and you know what? Something I have read, because I take a lot of personality tests, right, as part of the WP experience, and then just in my own work. And there was this generational test that I took,
Yeah.
and one of the things that they said about millennials is that they love depth.
Yeah.
They love knowing why. We question a lot. We don't just follow the rules and think like everything's going to be okay because in our generation, we did follow the rules initially when we were younger. And
Mm,
then just like a lot of shit hit the fan, right? We had 9/11. That was when a lot of us were like high school, maybe early college or late
mm,
junior high school. So, and then from there, just a lot of unpredictability. So we had a very good childhood. And then all of a sudden, the world kind of is upended. And so it's been challenge after challenge. And I think, we realized that just following the so-called protocol doesn't necessarily work.
hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we want to know what's beyond that. Because I
Hmm.
think we have optimism too. We have the optimism that yes, things can work, but it's much more of a puzzle and there's a lot that we don't understand.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And so with I guess one of my curiosities, right, is like for people that feel isolated, like the hardest thing is to join. Like the hardest thing can be to commit, right?
Hmm.
It's just never been easier to be so non-committal. That's what I
Oh
find.
yeah.
Like no one wants to have the sense of needing to show up even for themselves, right? And that's really
Oh
what
yeah.
we're talking about is like, how do you show up for the future you want to experience so that you grow and have relationships where you can rely on people and you can explore, you can explore real radical depth and friendship and around your wellness, which I would say the millennials are way more aware of than Gen X or the boomers. They're way more wellness aware, mental health aware, physical health aware, even if they might not be healthier. I feel like they're much more aware of how they're feeling and what they want, how they want to be living. So to have, and when I look at what I've seen in terms of social wellness club and how I've created these social wellness clubs without ever calling them a social wellness club, because I'm like, oh my gosh, that's wild. That's exactly what we've been doing, is that our good habits rub off on each other. So if we're not with people that have the habits that we want next, it's just near impossible. Like whether this is intermittent fasting, whether this is going to bed early, whether this is like dry October, like whatever is the habit that we're trying to automate or become our new floor, become our new normal. It's so much harder with like the do it yourself perspective that often we just set ourselves up to fail. But because we have commitment phobia as well, it can be hard to commit to us like the idea of a social wellness club, even though that might be the fastest track to feeling how we want to feel. So what are your thoughts?
Okay. So when I talk about Club Phoenix and I'm out there in the world, one of the most common responses, and even this is just like a tendency I see within the club too, is I need to do everything myself. If I
Yeah.
don't do everything myself, I'm weak. Or, there's a lot going on there. Um, I think we as a generation put a lot of pressure on ourselves. And I would like to explore this a little bit too, right? Because you're in a generation above me,
Mhm.
and it seems like everyone is more willing to just be social and be together, and helping each other is not necessarily a quote unquote bad thing.
Mhm.
But with a lot of millennials, this pattern that I see is like, I need to be strong and independent.
Mhm.
And one of my biggest messages that I put out there is that you have to find a tribe that vibes. Like you have, and
Mhm.
not just be around people. Like, yes, being around people is important,
Mhm.
but being around people that are going to inspire and support you,
Yeah.
because no leader is a leader if they don't have anybody behind them, right?
Yeah.
No, and you don't have a community if like there are no people around you. It's just all the stuff where we think that we have to just be this perfect entity and we have to all create it all ourselves. And that's partly our education
Mm.
too. But it's an undoing I think we need to start to do, because this is one of the biggest barriers to our ability to thrive
Mhm.
going forward as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I hear you on that shift from it's, I mean, it even reminds me of this study of like kids in this math class. I think it was like, actually, I can't remember the age. And it was a study that was done in Japan and in the US. And it was based on solving a problem. And in the US, all the kids solved the problem themselves. And in Japan, they actually solved it together. And, it's like so much of the value was in learning how to collaborate.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And, versus this DIY, like do it all yourself. What I find even in working, it's like in Wellness Pro Academy, we do so many of these done with you sessions. And we do a lot of that in Club Thrive as well, where it's like, if we do it together, it's way more fun. And we definitely are thinking differently. It's opening different neural pathways. We're getting feedback faster. We're able to bounce ideas off each other. It literally comes alive. And so instead of assignment being like a to do on your own, it's something that it actually is a social activity, right? It's like, making holiday energy balls for your friends, like doing it with a kid or doing it with a friend. It's way more of a social activity than doing it alone in order to get it done. And so that's one of my curiosities as well, is like we explore that, that idea of like a social wellness club when we take it away from being a course, because so many of us, I think, got burnt out on all the online courses and needing to learn how to, like, I used to teach the Living Ayurveda course. We both have a background in Ayurveda, and it was very much a course where we're doing it to learn it, right? We're
Yeah.
doing it for the certificate of completion. Now I am this, I've done this, which is really different than like an Ayurveda social club where we just end up learning all the same things, but much more in a natural social atmosphere.
Yes, it's experiential learning. It's and it allows for room for the individual's experience and then just like a collective intelligence, right? We're not
Yeah.
just learning from a book and applying it to everyone kind of cookie cutter.
Yeah.
And then, that's when you get people who are like, oh, this didn't work for me. Well, Ayurveda didn't work. It's not about that. It's really about figuring out who you are and
Mm-hmm.
how you relate to your environment, right? And that includes people.
Mm-hmm.
And learning that this is a dynamic relationship always between yourself and the world around you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, what are the core competencies in Club Phoenix?
Yeah. So in terms of core competencies, we have six. And it's actually been evolving in how I conceptualize it, but there's basically a pyramid. And so there's two on each tier. And I call it the pyramid of growth. And so, or like a cycle of growth, where on the bottom you actually have um, your homeostasis.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where we look into Ayurvedic concepts like Agni and Ojas, your resilience, right, and your ability to digest. And we look at that like in terms of your physical body, but also your mental health.
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing to maintain your system so that when shit hits the fan, whenever things get difficult, you're not just smacked and like completely out of commission,
Mm-hmm.
or like just completely taken away from what you want to achieve. So when I'm sorry, so when there's resilience, you also start to have a little bit of clarity, right? You start to have the stability to figure out what it is you actually want in life, rather than trying to constantly fight for survival. So we need Agni and Ojas to do that. Um, once we have that, then we have our second two on the second tier. And those two are habits and what I call true you.
Mm,
So learning who you truly are and creating the habits to start to build on who you are so that you can go for like your highest goals, your true purpose and whatnot. The thing is, like in that middle tier of growth, there's a lot of turbulence, right? And in Ayurveda, we would call it rajas. It's a lot of fighting with your own fears, anxieties, anger, your emotional tendencies, uh, stagnation or stubbornness, right? Like we cling on to things because that's where the ego starts to fight us.
mhm,
And so yes, we want to change, we want to make things better, but we always have this but in mind, right?
mm,
And like that's based off of those motions where we are attached to something. So whether that be like we're judging the way that things should be, or
mhm,
we're afraid of how things are going to turn out, etc., or we just want everything to stay the same because that's comfortable. All of that is within the second tier. And so habits where we're forming healthy habits, like that helps us break away from what we thought we were and opens up possibilities for who we can become.
yeah, it really tunes into that our habits shape our personality. And so they're bending into for a purpose, their next
Yeah.
purpose. So their habits are shifting into their next purpose. That's great.
Yeah. So the highest tier, I have two. They're called activate, and I believe the final one is creativity and purpose. So that final tier I also call building the muscles to highest self,
Mm,
because when you have the clarity and you figure out what you truly want and you give yourself permission to have desires, right? Like those deep, deep desires that you often talk about.
mhm,
Because a lot of millennials, and we could talk about this later, do not give themselves permission for that.
mm,
Um, then when it becomes clear, you could see the top of the mountain, but because you've never been to the top of the mountain and you suddenly are at this new like level, you don't know, or like you know what you need to do, but the muscles that you need to get to that top are very, very weak, right?
mhm,
You don't have the habits. Like I know, like learning in this past year with you, there are certain things that I know I need to do that I've resisted my entire life that I need to do, and they're
mhm.
just very, very weak muscles.
Yeah.
Um, So that's what activate is like identifying what is that muscle that you need to
Mm,
um, cultivate, and then learning the discipline in order to do it. And then the creative and the purpose, that's like when you do access that, and now you can really start to tap into your deeper creativity, the creativity that is healed rather than the creativity that comes from pain and suffering. So that's kind of the gist of what I see Club Phoenix as and the evolution of what you can become.
yeah. So in creating your system, it's like you get to create your own universe. I'd love to hear about your process with that.
Yeah. So I created the core curriculum actually very early on when I started WPA, but it was just based off of my values and um and my core convictions, right? That
Mhm,
has to be about the foundation. And I've always been very strong in what I believe in.
mm,
And so the process of how to get there is based off of my own experience as an artist, right? As someone who does dance and who loves moving, it was just the way that I saw things, right? Because I always challenged myself
mhm,
by relating it to movement. Like, can I do a backflip? Can I do all these things? And what am I going to do to get that? Because I know like it's going to take work that I don't really know. I don't have the muscles to do it yet. And so that's how I got there, right? And then it took me humbling myself because like a lot of the time I would be like, I should already be there. I should have done this already. And all these like self-judging, right? That's the pitta within me.
mm,
And that was the second tier. And like that first one is like there was a period of time where I had the worst social anxiety ever. Like I would go be outside of a party and I'd be crying because I already felt like I was not going to be accepted or there was going to be, and so uh knowing that my nervous system at some point just became really shot, and learning why that was and what I needed to do in order to raise it back up again so that I could be around people and all of that. That was my whole process.
Mm,
So it is a lot of applying what I learned in Ayurveda, applying what I've learned in psychology, and
yeah.
then adding in my own experience and expertise in creating this process.
Yeah. To me, it really speaks to how, if you don't have, if you're not in a social wellness club that has a structure towards growth, like it's really a crapshoot. Because then it's like, what are the options? You've got talk therapy, you've got pills, you've got piecemealing together, which might be like going to this, yoga class, maybe going to this gym, maybe going to this health food store, and you're piecing together your wellness. You have, somewhat, I think a lot of us have like fairly random relationships, right? We have relationships with the people we work with, and then we have our friendships, and then we have the core people that we've really selected into our life. But often when we look at that, it's like people have come in somewhat randomly into our lives, whereas this is an opportunity to be in Club Phoenix, for example, where you're with other people that are intentionally growing into their next purpose, right? They're intentionally cultivating wellness habits. They're intentionally going through a process together, right? Which is a curriculum based on expertise, right? And so it's so much less random. It's like taking out that like chaotic random factor, which really destroys resilience.
Absolutely. I think that's, I had to learn a lot of it myself because of that. Like I didn't have a structure before, and it caused me a lot of unnecessary suffering. If I had known how to ask for help much early on,
Mm-hmm.
it would have been a very different story. But
Mm-hmm.
like that was the story that I had in my head. I have to do everything myself. If
Mm-hmm.
we can just turn that around and start to ask for help and be in clubs like this,
Yeah.
then you would get better so much faster. That saves you years of being miserable, of being broke, of being tired, of being lonely, of being sad, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Years.
Well,
But
and even
yeah.
learning how to choose relationships with people that are striving towards growth and healthier is really
Yeah.
different than random. Like to me,
Oh, yeah.
that's just it's so night or day. And even if you belong to a gym, it's like, are you going to meet people at the gym? Maybe, maybe not. It can be so random. Like life can just add up to way too much randomness. And I think especially now that so many things are online, that someone might be working online and they might be just having more of a self-based schedule, which is maybe more isolating and less bringing them into social situations naturally that are more intentional.
Yeah, and this is something that I realized when I started to do my own growth work,
Mm-hmm.
is that I noticed that even when I thought I was intentional, right? I was going to yoga class or I was going to martial arts class and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get to choose the people who were in there or the vibe that
Right.
was in there.
Yeah.
So it would be a lot of surrounding myself with people with anxiety and um when you start to have more of the self-awareness of what you want and the type of people that you want to be around, it starts to actually be very clear that you need to start to really choose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You need to cultivate, right? And design. And I'm guessing too, and this is what I've noticed. It's not totally guessing, but it's like the more we're in mastermind groups, the more we're in purpose-driven clubs, right? Where it's growth oriented, the more we realize that structure creates resilience for us. Like that structure keeps pulling us into what's possible, pulls us into much higher level social situations than just happen randomly, and into those deeper commitments where we can turn to people for help and get help according to a structure rather than just like, randomly what someone else read about something or heard about something or blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. The the structure is part of the resilience, right? Because when people come
Yeah.
into a club, they don't have it. They don't have the social resilience. So there has to be some artificial part, not artificial per se, but just like
Yeah.
there, we need to draw strength from the group that is already healing.
Yeah.
And then
It was
once you heal, you become part of it.
right. And it's seamless. It just happens. So when I was at the Global Wellness Summit in Scotland, and just noticed that they talk a lot about trends in the industry. And this group's been around for, I think, I don't know, 14, 15 years. And they kept talking about social wellness. Like it was just like hashtag social wellness, hashtag social wellness. And like, how do we create environments for people to socialize around wellness? It's like the opposite of like going to the bar, right? And
Mhm.
it's like drinking a bunch of stuff that will make you depressed and anxious and fat and have chronic inflammation.
Yeah.
It's like, well, how do we socialize in wellness? And when I think about the club model, because so much of what I found there was like, oh, that's exactly what we do at Wellness Pro Academies. We help wellness pros create their own clubs or circles or collaborative groups, or however we want to call the noun of a group that's committed to a process together. Uh, and just to see that, like, oh, wow, for millennials, this is even more important than for Gen X, than boomers, et cetera, than it's been in the past due to all the isolation and social anxiety. And like you said, like the comparing ourselves because it's growing up on social media, et cetera. Yeah, it just seems really important to me. Do you want to talk just a little bit about like the wellness professional's role in creating safe spaces and community spaces, whether they're virtual or whether they're in person?
Yeah. So here's the thing, and I've learned through trying to do Ayurveda the clinical way and then growing into more of a personal growth coach, is
Mhm,
that it is very important to create the space for people to be their own guide and healer.
mhm,
Like I'm here, I provide some of the knowledge and I provide the ideas, but the true key to all of this is to learn how to essentially heal yourself because you have
mhm,
the power within. That's really important. Empowerment is actually the key, not leaning on higher authority or something to tell you like this is what you got to do with your body.
mhm,
And that's something that needs to be learned, and it takes the right person in order to do it,
mhm,
right? Because I, as the wellness pro, can't have the ego that it always has to be on, like me telling you, or it can't be always me dictating what you do. And when I see people, in patterns of self-sabotage or within like their own head with self-doubt, um, I I guide, right? But there's no way for me to get in your head to take away those self-sabotaging thoughts. I
mhm,
simply create awareness, and then you have to come and meet me halfway to do the work to see like, yes, I've got some things that I need to work on too in order for me to get better. Yeah.
yeah, I love that. Yeah. So the container creates the inquiry within. It's like the container and the guide create the inquiry within.
Yeah. And like, so we do this activity in Club Phoenix called True You where we tell each other our life stories.
Mm,
And this can be very intimidating for some members. But what I've learned is like when you give permission for us to do this and you see somebody else telling their vulnerable story,
yeah.
it's like, oh, even though I feel like I'm ashamed of my own life, here's somebody else who's telling their stuff.
Mm,
Okay, now I can tell it, and now I don't have to feel so afraid. And I've seen a lot of transformation by doing that. So it
mm,
is modeling, being open, being vulnerable.
mm. Would you like to share just a client success story or a story of someone in Club Phoenix that's had a shift?
Yeah, so I have a member, she came in the fall, and she's one of my strongest, I'd say. She came in because she felt like her body's aging. And she's a millennial, right? So she's not that it's not like she's old, but she's like, if I don't do something,
Mm.
like I'm not going to be able to walk up that hill and all
Yeah.
of that.
Wow.
And now it's not only that, like she had no experience of detoxing, like her relationship with food, like she didn't understand it.
Yeah.
And now she's like, oh, I can explore eating to like heal myself. And she's going to the gym. She hired a personal trainer. She's doing weightlifting. She's really pumped about it. Like it's night and day.
Wow.
And that's like she's only you know, less than halfway through. And she's a powerhouse. So,
What was
it's
the
like
hardest part for her in signing up for Club Phoenix?
uh I think she already knew that she needed the change. And
She,
she's,
yeah.
but she was like, I think she'd been following me for years, right? I think a lot
Uh-huh.
of people see it. And when
Yeah.
they see, like, I've done the work, I've evolved, it's like, yeah, I want that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I don't know what exactly that is, but you're doing it. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna jump on board.
So what I'm hearing in that is just you being consistent, right? You
Yeah,
consistently showing up on social media, you consistently writing newsletters, you consistently publishing your podcast, and just being consistent allows other people to find you when they have that sense of I need to change now. I
yeah,
need I want better for myself right now.
yeah. And I'm very open about my journey. It's like I'm not
Yeah.
afraid to tell it like it is. Like it was not easy. I went through a lot. And I think people when they see that, like, oh, it's okay to, have a hard time
Yeah.
also. Yeah.
So if people want to talk to you about your club, do they go to intrepidwellness.life?
Yes. So you can find all of the stuff there. Intrepidwellness.life. You can find the podcast, all of my upcoming events. You can book a call. My calendar is already set up in there as well. So if you need any more information, that's where you need to go.
Yeah. And so if someone schedules with you, can you just kind of walk them through, especially someone who might be anxious just about like they know they need to talk to you, but they might be apprehensive?
Yeah. I would say just come in knowing that your whatever experience that you have already and whatever you're worried about, it's going to be held in a safe space that like I'm just here to listen to you and see what you need. Right. And so there's no pressure to do anything. I just want to see if there's a path we can carve forward moving together.
Yeah, I think it's really important that people understand you just come as you are. That because often we have a sense of like, well, I don't want to show up until I've got this under
Mhm.
control, or until I
Yeah.
don't have this issue right now, or I'm not in crisis, or I'm not traumatized by whatever just happened in my life. So I'm glad that it just feels safe to come and talk to you about whatever they want to talk about. And then if Club Phoenix is a good fit, then it'll be obvious to both of you.
Yeah. Yeah. There's like no shame, right? No, just it's you're coming in to heal.
Yeah.
So we never expect you to be perfect or healed already. That doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make any
Yeah.
sense. Oh, anything else you want to say in closing about millennials and having, I mean, I want to just say in closing, I'm curious what you want to say, but what I want to say is like, people should have FOMO about if you're not in a, if you're a millennial and you're not in a social wellness club, like you should have some serious FOMO. That's what I want to say.
Okay, so here's what I want to say because we need to stop waiting as a generation for our life to happen, right? Houses are not going to get any cheaper, like healthcare is not going to get any cheaper. Like sorry, but there we do need to start to take agency over our own healing because it's actually accessible to us. Um and the world is imperfect and not no one's going to act the way that you want them to act. The only person that you have control over is you. And so we're getting to age like we're almost exiting like childbearing age where, there's a lot of stuff that I think we're waiting on to stop waiting. Yeah.
Yeah. So stop waiting. Yeah, I'm really, really, yeah. You'll never regret getting on your purpose and your mission and your wellness sooner, ever. So talk to Valerie. Yay.
Yay.
I'm glad
All
we had
right.
a chance to connect.
Yes, thank you so much for having me here.